Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. If you're watching and if you can hear me, please type something in the comments. Just let me know if you can hear me well, like a plus or a thumbs up or something. That would be great. And hello, everyone who is joining in. It's good to see you guys. How are you doing? I hope that your week's going well so far. I mean, it's Wednesday. Still have a couple days to go. Awesome, you can hear me. Great. Thanks for letting me know. That's actually really helpful. Well, thank you guys for joining and welcome to this live. So I did something similar last week, and I'm actually considering going live on a more regular basis because it's been a while, and I really enjoy connecting with you in this format. I mean, messaging and commenting and posting is all good, but not the same thing when you can actually connect live with people. So I think that's pretty awesome. Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes for people to join and we'll get started. Like, this is so weird. I have the actual event open on my phone and I'm watching just to see what kind of picture you guys can see. And it's so weird that I'm looking at myself with a big delay. So it's really weird. Anyways, hello. Thank you for joining. So the reason why we're getting together today is to review some of your LinkedIn profiles. If you've never met me before, I'll briefly introduce myself, and actually it would be really great if you guys introduced yourself with one sentence or one phrase in the comments, because this is also a networking event, by the way. For those of you who are into networking, I mean, this is another opportunity. There are other people who are watching, so what if you actually get connected after this? So if you feel like it, just say one sentence about who you are, where you're from, and what do you do. Something super simple, just so that we get to know each other a little bit better. And in the meantime, if you've never seen me before or never read any of my posts or seen any of my videos, my name is Anna. I'm a career coach and LinkedIn trainer, and I help professionals across various industries job search more effectively and land high-paying jobs. And how I do that is by helping them identify what makes them different from everyone else, what makes them unique, and how they can market and position their skill set in the best and most effective way. And LinkedIn is one of my huge passions because that is the main instrument that I've been leveraging for the past few years to drive my own professional development and to help my clients and other job seekers do the same. So when it comes to LinkedIn, I'm really a huge advocate, and I've been learning the ins and outs of this platform for a while now. So if you have any questions around LinkedIn and you feel like typing them in the comments, I will go through those in a little bit. So we can definitely chat about some of your questions around LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the topic of today. And yeah, if it turns into a weekly thing, that would be pretty cool. Then we can talk about other things career related, but for now, LinkedIn. And you'll have to stop me at some point because that's the topic that I can talk about for hours and hours. So I did actually encourage some people to send me their LinkedIn profiles and if they wanted to have them reviewed live today. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to pull up real profiles of real people, and we're going to roast them with an objective to help each one of you learn something new about positioning yourself on LinkedIn. Because there are so many opportunities and so many possibilities that are waiting for you on this platform. But unfortunately, the majority of people, the majority of professionals don't quite know how to leverage LinkedIn fully, how to leverage the whole potential that this platform has to offer. And one thing that I'm going to say before we start reviewing your actual profiles is that a lot of the times people believe that, and people that I work with, when they come to me, it's the same thing basically. So people believe that if I have a really well-written LinkedIn profile, if I optimize it for search performance, if I dive a little bit deeper into like what needs to be on my profile and how I can make it look really, really good, then I'll just sit back and wait for things to happen. So I'm gonna start right here and say that that is not the case. For most of us, simply describing what we're great at and how we can help others is not enough. Obviously, if your profile is great and it looks good and it's optimized for relevant things, then yes, more people hypothetically or potentially would be able to find you on LinkedIn. And that is great. So that is, you're covering your bases in terms of the inbound leads for your career development. By inbound, I mean other people reaching out to you. So they're coming in, they're messaging you and saying, hey, I really like your profile, let's connect. Or, hey, there's a job opportunity I wanted to talk to you about in more detail. So that's inbound. But that is only a percentage of the whole story. So the whole story actually has to do with you being in charge of how much visibility you have on LinkedIn. So without going into too much detail, it means that if you put yourself out there more, but obviously if you do that strategically, if you do that with intention, if you network with the relevant people in your industry, in your profession, or in the industry where you want to go eventually, where you want to be in a month, in 2 months, in 3 years, doesn't matter. So if you put yourself out there, then you're also creating outbound opportunities. So you are putting your awesome profile, which we're going to talk about in a minute, in front of more eyes. And that is a really important thing to do. So it's a combination. One thing, yes, your LinkedIn profile is your first impression. And really you have to think, what do you want it to be? But after that comes the piece, okay, so let's say you did optimize your LinkedIn profile and you did position yourself pretty well on there. What happens next? Are you going to sit back and wait for people to find you? Some of them might, but some of them won't. So it's important that you're leveraging things and leveraging opportunities in both directions. You are obviously open to people reaching out to you, and the fact that your profile looks attractive makes it a lot more fun and a lot easier, but also you're reaching out to people first as well. You're putting yourself out there, and a great looking, well-written profile helps you with that because your response rate increases right away. Because I'm pretty sure that if somebody reached out to you on LinkedIn and they didn't have a photo, their profile was closed, you couldn't see their experience, you couldn't see their background, you would be very reluctant to connect with them. And it works both ways. Hello, everyone who's joining. It's awesome that you guys are joining from such different places. That's incredible. Okay, so I'm going to get started. If you're just joining in, please feel free to say hello in the comments. That's why we're here. We're here to get to know each other. And if you want to connect with someone who is watching this live today afterwards, I think that's a great opportunity. Just saying. Okay, so I'm going to pull up our first profile for today. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry, there might be some messages that might come up because, well, this is my actual LinkedIn. So if you guys are messaging me, chances are that people are going to see that on the screen. So, okay, let's start with Natalia's profile. I'm going to analyze every single section one by one, and hopefully you guys can also take something away from these examples, because there's definitely a lot of very common things that people like common myths or common misconceptions or common pitfalls when it comes to LinkedIn profiles. So first of all, I really like Natalia's headshot. So the picture that she has as her profile picture looks really good. You can clearly see her face. There's good lighting. It's professional. She has some, like, her personality really shows through. And that's important because, again, LinkedIn is a social platform and people want to get connected with other people. But when it comes to the background image, I mean, I probably guess that there is some meaning behind this, or like Natalia has some attachment to this type of background image. But in the context of your presentation on LinkedIn, I would say that since I can already see that we're talking about a creative brand manager here, so as a creative, you definitely can you can create a much stronger visual impact with the graphics on your LinkedIn profile. And your banner image is definitely a great opportunity to make that visual statement. So something that would be custom designed, and you don't even have to be a graphic designer to do that. Anybody can do that these days. And you can make it very relevant to your industry. So if you're a creative professional, show that with your banner image. Make your profile so memorable that people would actually understand that this is going to be interesting to read. And even if you are someone who is not in the creative industry or couldn't be further from the creative industry, still your banner image on LinkedIn is a great opportunity to create a more personalized experience. People may not remember all the details they find in the text of your profile, but they're going to remember the overall impression or the overall impact that your profile has. So make sure that you don't miss out on that opportunity. Also, let's talk about headline for a sec. So your profile headline is the most, or one of the most important sections, not only because it's at the very top of your profile, so people can see that. People can also see part of your headline even before opening your profile. So imagine if you're searching for a brand manager and you type in "you're a recruiter" and you type in "brand manager" in the search bar on LinkedIn. And you have a long list of different people's profiles. So before you even click on them, you're going to see part of their headline. So obviously that is already kind of a mini first impression right there, even before you click on the profile. Still, there is a lot more characters available to Natalia here to leverage that and to talk a little bit more about her professional focus. Or because, again, Natalia is a creative professional and she probably does a lot of work with branding. So personal branding, that is a concept that if you put it in simple words, it pretty much means that you are translating a certain impression to other people. And that's the impression that is going to last even when you leave the room. So even when we end this live here today, for example, you guys are going to have a certain perception of me, my level of expertise, my professionalism, or my personality, different things. And all of that combined, even when I'm not there, would be part of my personal brand. So think about what kind of impression you want to make. And that's what you need to be translating, even starting with your profile headline. Not to mention that when it comes to search performance, what I mean by search performance is how easy it is to locate you on LinkedIn for other people. The easier it is, the higher are your chances to be noticed and to be visible. So a person is going to type in certain things. They might type in brand manager because that's the relevant job title in this case, but they might also type in other relevant keywords depending on the industry. So you have to kind of reverse engineer it back from your target role or the opportunities that you're generally targeting. Even if you're not actively job searching right now, and maybe you're employed, still, you do want to be marketable. You do want to understand what the market has to offer. You don't have to take it, but wouldn't it be nice if you just knew your value on the market? And in order for other people to understand which opportunities would be most relevant to you and where you would be the best possible match, they need to see that. So you need to tell them that. And by saying strategic and creative brand manager, you don't tell them enough. You could be a brand manager in financial services industry, or you could be a brand manager for a marketing agency that works with other businesses. Those are two very different scenarios, and sometimes they require quite different skill sets. Of course, there's a big overlap, obviously, but the more targeted and focused you are, the better are your chances of actually attracting the right types of opportunities. Okay, let's look at the About section. So first of all, there's a very short description. Definitely there's a lot more space to add some more additional information. So here I would say that Natalia is pretty much covering the basics, and she's talking about her experience for nonprofits and the human rights perspective. Okay, that's great. Again, until I read towards the end, I don't have a very good perception of the kind of places or the kinds of businesses that Natalia could add value to. So even though there are some really good thoughts in here, I would say that there needs to be a better structure of how you present that information to other people. And basically, if I had to summarize what your About section needs to cover, I would pretty much highlight 4 important things, I would say. One is who you are. So obviously you have to start with some kind of an opener, at least start with an opener where people would, like, that opener kind of sets the tone for your entire profile. So think like when you're deciding to buy a book and there's this one liner that talks about like what this book is about or who this book is going to be best for or most useful for. So that kind of thing. Same here. So you need an opener that talks about who you are. Then you need a piece that talks about what you do. Again, what you do in very specific, tangible ways. So practical things, what you actually do, what you focus on in your profession. Then you can talk about how you do what you do, because that is something that is going to truly differentiate you from other people. 1,000 other people could do the same tasks, the same functions as you, but not many people could do it the way you do it. And finally, I would wrap it up with a very clear understanding of who you can help and how you can help them, like what's in it for them. That is usually the most important piece. And obviously, behind or between the lines, it needs to be present everywhere. But those are the beginner points if you want to structure your About section. You can obviously flesh it out or you can experiment with it a little bit. Luckily, LinkedIn does give you some room for creativity on here, but still there needs to be a very clear structure that people could skim through in a matter of seconds and have an understanding of who they're actually dealing with. Also, I'm going to say for Natalia specifically, since she's a brand manager, she probably has some accomplishments that have a visual impact, or there is some information about accomplishments or projects that Natalia has delivered or has handled in the past. So there is another section that can be here at the top of your profile, and it's called Featured. In the Featured section, you can, feature different attachments and different media to showcase some of the things that you've done. I mean, if you've written a great article on LinkedIn or elsewhere, feature it on there, like literally pin it in that section. If you have a video, let's say you have a YouTube channel, or maybe you have, or you recorded some kind of a video for a project, because again, branding, you never know. So any kind of multimedia stuff that showcases you in action. And that would be relevant even if you're not in the creative space. You can have a lot of things that back up your expertise that you can pin at the top of your profile. And that really is a high touch thing to do. So when somebody opens a profile and can actually dive into and get in touch with your expertise on a deeper level, because this is surface level, like summarizing your experience, that's surface level. can they really have a deeper insight into your experience? Can you show it to them versus simply saying, this is what I do? Show, don't tell. Like that would be, I mean, in this case, we also need to tell, but showing definitely enhances the overall picture. Okay, let's look at her experience. So, okay, here, as we can see, there is a list of job tasks and responsibilities. So obviously we can see that there are some numbers that help us understand the scope a little bit better. So what kind of scope has Natalia dealt with in the past? But ideally, what we want to have in the experience section are accomplishments and specific outcomes. So yes, you built up a business portfolio of more than 20 customers. So what? What did that create for the business? What kind of revenue? What kind of additional opportunities? What kind of partnerships and relationships? What kind of growth? So there's like a whole bunch of different things that come out of that. And let's say you do daily follow-ups on leads, prospects, and customers. Again, you do that, obviously, great. Why do you do that? What kind of impact does that have? So always, when you're in doubt, always ask yourself a very simple question. So what? I conduct research. I conduct market research. So what? Or for what? Like, what does that do for someone else other than me? And then you can actually ask that question multiple times until you get to the ultimate result or the ultimate impact of the work that you do. Because there is impact, 100%. And that's what's going to market you on LinkedIn. Functions don't really market you anywhere on your resume or be it on LinkedIn, but results and outcomes, they market you. So that's what makes you stand out. Obviously, the same thing applies to other experiences that she's had. And I'm going to say that when you are listing certain, I mean, in this case, more responsibilities, but even if you were listing like accomplishments, please start them with an action verb, like demonstrated or led or managed or implemented. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of opportunities or versions, because in this case, there's like some of the stuff is like a noun, like relationships development or development of commercial proposals, but then we have monitored and reviewed. So there needs to be some consistency. And even if you decide to do that in a different format, so not a list of bullets, still there needs to be some consistency of like how you're doing that. Formatting is important. Okay, there are quite a few experiences, so I'm just going to scroll through because I think similar feedback applies to all those different experiences. Okay, there is some education. Okay, great. There is volunteer experience. So I'm not sure if probably this was somewhere in a non-English speaking country, I imagine. I don't know. If I'm wrong, please, disregard that comment. But it would be great if there was also an English version of some names of those organizations. I mean, here it's volunteering, so it's not the primary focus of your profile, but still, it's going to be important to have some of those names in English. Okay, yeah, I can see that there's definitely some other background that is not US based. Okay. I like that the skills that Natalia has at the very top are actually very relevant to her target field. So guys, if you are looking at your skills section on your profile and, feel free to open that up on your phone or elsewhere and just look at it objectively and think at least the top 3 skills that you have, because they are visible all the time, even before you click on more and before you expand, right? So you want to make sure that those 3 actually talk about something that relates very closely to your industry and your profession. And ideally, not only the profession or the industry you're currently in, but also the one you want to have down the road in the future, in the near future, hopefully. I like that there are some recommendations and they are actually pretty fresh. Recommendations are super powerful, by the way. If you don't have 80 on your LinkedIn profile, I suggest that you reach out to some people who know you, who've worked with you in any capacity. They don't have to be your direct supervisor or direct report. They could be a coworker, a team member, a leader in a different department that you worked very closely with. So literally anybody who's interacted with you in a work, any professional setting, really, they can write a testimonial and talk a little bit about their experience working with you. And that's a great way to provide some social proof. Okay. I think that's about it for this profile. And I'm going to check out your comments to see if you have any questions. I can see that a lot of you are asking to check out your profile. So actually, I posted I announced this event a little bit in advance, and I asked some people to send me their LinkedIn profiles, and they already did. So those are the profiles that I'm going to be reviewing today. So if you want to have your profile reviewed next time, I hope there will be a next time, then please stay tuned for my posts. And then if you send me your profile in advance, then obviously I'll be happy to do it. But for now, I have to respect the people who already send those profiles to me in advance. Okay, let's look at some questions. Okay. Yeah, like I said, if you want to have your profile reviewed, please feel free to send it to me in advance, and then I'll see what I can do, because there are obviously a lot of different profiles. I cannot review all of them during one live stream, but I'll do my best. Okay, here's a question. Can we put a banner that isn't industry related, but personal related to something we enjoy doing? I mean, you can do whatever you want ultimately, but why are you on LinkedIn? I think that brings us back to that question. So if you are on LinkedIn to connect in a professional context, and I'm not saying that elements of your personality wouldn't be important, because they would be important and relevant. But at the same time, what's the end goal? What's the primary objective? And it sounds to me, or it seems to me, that for most of you, the primary objective actually is to connect in a professional setting or in the professional context. So it would be better if it's something that is industry related or profession related, not because I said so, but because there's a very clear message that you're sending to people in terms of, this is what my profile is about, this is what I do, this is where I add value, this is who I want to connect with. And if, I mean, you could technically have a similar approach in terms of your personal stuff, but again, why are you on LinkedIn? And I'm not saying that LinkedIn, that's actually the part that I enjoy personally, that LinkedIn has become a lot more social than simply a job board. And I mean, it used to be a job board many years ago. Luckily, that has changed over the years and changed a lot. So I do enjoy that now there are more elements of humanness and personality, but the banner on your profile, I do believe it's like part of your overall business card. Let's put it that way. Okay. I'll take this question as well. Do you need to add all the bullets under jobs? Can we leave that for the resume? You don't need to include everything on your LinkedIn profile. Obviously, there might even be some pieces of information that are sensitive, so you wouldn't disclose them publicly on your LinkedIn profile, but you potentially would include some more details on your resume, because that's your resume. And there's a different situation when it comes to that. I'm not saying that if the information is totally confidential, then you cannot disclose it anywhere. But I'm just saying that there is a difference between sometimes how much you can disclose on your LinkedIn to everyone versus how much you can disclose just in the context of showcasing one accomplishment on your resume. But you don't have to include everything. You can include the main highlights. That's the goal, because nobody is going to read a list of 20 different bullet points on LinkedIn or on your resume for that matter. So ideally what you want to have is a list of a list or a few short paragraphs that have the biggest highlights from your experience. And by highlights, I mean key accomplishments and key outcomes. And then think about what kind of messaging you want to translate to other people. Like, let's say if you want to position yourself as a business leader, as someone who can coach and mentor a team, as someone who can lead and inspire other people and empower them, then perhaps the accomplishments that you want to highlight on your profile would be more related to that leadership experience or that leadership aspect of your background. Versus if you wanted to position yourself differently, then you would highlight things differently. So that's why I'm saying, think about what you want to translate into the professional world, and then that would dictate what kind of things you want to highlight on your profile. And that might change over time. So your profile is a living thing that you can constantly change and update. It's not a one-time, I posted something on my profile, then that's it. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next profile, and then I can go back to some of your questions. Okay. Let's see. Again, sorry about the messages. Okay, so here's the profile of Oleg. And let's look at what he has on here. So I like the profile picture, very pro and very serious, but very pro. The banner image, I'm not a huge fan of. And I know that this is this is the part of the feedback that is subjective. So other people might have other subjective opinions, but I'm going to share mine. And then obviously you guys can decide for yourselves. So first of all, what I don't like is the fact that the face would be then you cannot see the full image, right? So it's cut out at very weird places. Ideally, we don't want that to happen. So that's one thing. Also on desktop, you can barely see this text up here. So when you're positioning text on your banner image, you kind of need to be a little bit careful because a lot of people would be using desktop as well as mobile. And ideally, you want to have text in places that would be visible. So also, the pictures look very similar. So the banner looks very similar to the profile headshot, and that creates a little bit of an unnecessary duplication. So I would suggest that there could be some room for including a different picture of yours onto your banner, but you need to experiment a little bit more with how you position that so that at least it doesn't get cut out at weird places. Or you could replace the background and then put another picture of yours on top of that, and then write some text about your experience or something like that, or some keywords that are related to your industry, for example. Okay, so moving on. The headline is pretty clear, and I like that it's targeted. So right away, we can see the industry that Oleg is in. We can see the things that he focuses on. We can see that even within finance as a very broad area, there is fintech and startup scaling. So within the big space of finance, which can be a lot of different things, tens of different things, here we can see that there is another area of focus that Oleg is suggesting as where he can add value. So I really like that. Another thing that I can say in terms of location. So when you're indicating location, it's actually very important for other people to find you and how you're going to show up in recruiters or employers' search results. And usually what I found is that when you live in the city, in this case, that's Calgary, which is also where I live. If you showcase simply Calgary, then you are limiting yourself, and you're actually going to show up in fewer searches than if you indicate Greater Calgary, what does it usually say? Calgary metropolitan area or Greater Calgary area or something like that. And you can do that with any city. It can be New York or Greater New York metropolitan area. It can be Toronto, and you're saying Greater Toronto area. So Usually that creates more opportunities for you to come up in more search results for the same area. So experiment with it, play around, and see if that helps. Okay, so the About section here is extremely, extremely long. I would suggest cutting it by approximately half and only singling out the type of information that Oleg wants to highlight about himself. So for example, and again, this always brings us back to why are you on LinkedIn in the first place and what kinds of career opportunities are you potentially targeting, regardless of whether you're actively job searching or passively job searching or not job searching at all for now. Still, like the more focused you are, the clearer it is for other people of like the clearer they are about how they can partner and collaborate with you. So in this case, if let's say hypothetically, Oleg was focused on startups and fintech as like the area of his interest at the moment, this is what I would talk about in the About section more. So yeah, you can still have kind of a general introduction of things that you focus on, or like a opener that summarizes your experience in general. But after that, make it more targeted towards the types of roles or the types of opportunities that truly interest you and that you truly want to consider for yourself. And yeah, this is way too much text. So you can be a little bit more concise in here and make sure that that About section is very much tailored to your key areas of interest, because that's one of the problems, well, not problems, but one of the challenges that you might face when you have quite a bit of experience. You've done so many different things. And obviously to you, all of them, they feel very valuable and very personal. And you feel like, okay, I have some things to show there. But more information isn't always better. Most of the time, what it does, more information, more unrelated or more irrelevant information, it diffuses the focus of your profile. So if other people come in and they're like, okay, I have 30 seconds, 20 seconds to check out what Oleg is about and if he's the right person, and you're reading and there's a lot of different things, and that's like immediately confuses the reader, and they need to think, they need to analyze what like, how can we collaborate? Is Oleg really good at what I thought he was good at or not? Like, so it's confusing, and that takes more time. And when something takes more time in general, that decreases the likelihood of that person reaching out. So we want to translate a very like a crystal clear message in a matter of seconds. And for that, your profile needs to have more of a focus. And I understand that that's challenging when you've done a lot in your previous experience. Okay, so there's very limited information in Oleg's experience section. And you don't actually need to like be extremely specific about what the company does, because the beauty of LinkedIn is that I can actually click and read more about that company if I wanted to. But if you wanted to highlight, let's say, the fact that this is a leading consulting firm, and you want to like show that it's international because it has offices worldwide, then you can incorporate that into summarizing your experience in that company. So instead of simply saying that you did this or that, or accomplished this or that, you can say that you accomplished this for this leading consulting firm with, you know, international presence across 15 different countries. So that way you're also signaling that scope a little bit more. Again, same feedback as with previous profile, when we were talking about Natalia's profile. Accomplishments and key, like let's say in Oleg's case, there were probably some key strategic projects or initiatives. Again, if there is some sensitive information in there, you don't need, like, obviously there's no need to showcase everything, but you can still highlight your key areas of improvements or added value or growth. Again, if you talked about startup scaling, so those are the things that people would be looking for. Okay, education, some volunteering, great. Okay, so Again, skills. Remember the very first question that we ask ourselves when it comes to the skills section. Are the skills in this section relevant and specific enough for people to understand what I do and what I want? So strategic financial planning is very specific, but management in general, that is too broad. Like you can have it as like your 49th skill out of 50 or something like that, but the top 3 need to be they need to be a lot more targeted. And they can actually correlate with your headline. So if your headline, again, is about fintech, for example, so if you brought it up in your headline, probably it's a very important area of focus. So it should be one of the top 3 skills on here as well. Okay, there are some recent recommendations, which is awesome. Languages, okay, great. Again, another recommendation for Oleg and for anyone who's watching, really, if you have examples of your work that you can showcase, and they don't always need to be examples of what you did. Maybe you were featured on a website or in some media, and that talks a little bit about your contribution on a project or your participation in a certain initiative or how you organized an event and there were posts about it on social media. So if you wanted to add that on your LinkedIn profile, you could either do that at the top in the section that is called featured, or you could actually attach media under every single experience. So obviously, if it's at the top of your profile in the featured section, it's going to get way more visibility. But even here, if something is very specific to that particular company, for example, the most recent one, you could actually attach some media on here as well, if you have some. I'm not saying that you don't have to do that, but if you wanted to, you could. Okay, let's look at some of your questions. Okay, this might be a question that is relevant for a lot of you. If you don't have the job yet and you're open to work, do you put aspiring or just put the title of the job you want in the headline? Ideally, I'm going to preface this by saying that everything needs to be done within reason, obviously. So if you, ideally, you should have the title of the job you want in the headline, or as closely as you can get to that title. And the reason is because if you want to, let's say you want to be a brand manager, but right now you're not a brand manager. So there are 2 potential scenarios here. One is you were a brand manager, but you're just not employed yet right now, but you have that brand manager experience. In that case, it's pretty straightforward. You still put brand manager in your headline. But if you've never done brand management, but you've done something else, and now you're transitioning into brand management as your new area of new profession or new job, new career, whatever. So obviously calling yourself a brand manager, if you've never actually managed a brand, is a bit too strong of a stretch. That's what I mean. Like, we have to stay within reason. But brand management as a skill, as an area of interest, that would be appropriate in your headline. Why? Because otherwise, if it's not in your headline, how would a recruiter be able to identify that that is something you're interested in? They wouldn't. Obviously, you could rely on just your outreach. So you could be reaching out to recruiters and explaining it to them, but they don't have all the time in the world to read lengthy texts of cover letters and all that stuff. So if brand management is something you're interested in, put it in your headline, and then use the other sections, the about section, the experience section, the skills section. Use all of those to help people understand how what you've done in the past relates to this new role or the new career that you're interested in. So really, when you are transitioning like that, in that particular case, you would need to focus your profile around transferable skills. Transferable skills are skills that you can take from one career or one industry or one job to another one, and they still are applicable and they still add value. So those are transferable skills. And those are the things that need to be on your profile for people to understand why do you have brand management in your headline, for example. Do recommendations make a big impact? It depends on what you define as impact. If you're talking about impact, like, will it help my profile be found more easily? No. So a profile with recommendations or a profile without recommendations, both profiles have the potential to be equally likely to be in the search results at the top or not be at the top of the search result. But if we're talking about that first impression or that impact or that level of enthusiasm that the recruiter or the employer would have reaching out to you, then obviously there is a huge impact. So it's the same mechanism as when you're reading customer reviews before buying a product. So you are not sure, you're on the fence, but when you read a couple things that other people had to say, you're like, I want it. So same thing here. If there are people who say things about, say positive things about their experience working with you, that on average, in general, encourages other people to trust you more. Obviously, it's a question of integrity. So if those recommendations are fake or your best friend wrote random stuff for you, then obviously that wouldn't work. So I'm talking about in recommendations that were given with integrity. So people actually spoke to the true experience of working with you. Great question from Michelle. And hi, Michelle. I remember you were on my live last week as well. How do you request endorsements? Making a post seems a bit desperate. You don't need to make a post for that. So if you're talking about there are skills endorsements, so people are verifying that you have a certain skill, and there are recommendations, which we could also call endorsements. So for recommendations, there's a special button on LinkedIn at the top of your profile where you have an add section. You click on there's a drop down, and you're going to see ask for a recommendation as one of the options in there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google ask for recommendation function on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty sure you'll see a step-by-step somewhere. So you can do that, and then that person who you're asking, so LinkedIn will walk you through couple steps, and you'll be able to directly message the person who you want to ask, and they will right away receive a link to leave their recommendation. So it's pretty straightforward and pretty convenient, so they don't have to look for your profile, then press a button or something. They just open a message, the link is right there. When it comes to skill endorsements, though, you can't really ask people to endorse you, but you can endorse other people, and it's very likely that they're going to reciprocate. So obviously, skills endorsements are very quick, and not many people trust them. Obviously, 100 different people can click endorse just even without knowing that you have that skill. But again, that's a question of integrity, so I'm not going to dive into that. But in general, endorsing other people is a great way to encourage them to endorse you in return. Just saying. Okay. Another question. I have a career break I didn't mention on my LinkedIn. What do you suggest that I do? So actually, depending on your location, LinkedIn has rolled out a career break feature. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but that's what the essence of it is. So there's actually a special function on your profile now where you can explain a career gap, and it would show up in your experience. But I'm not sure if they rolled it out in all the different countries, because obviously a lot of things show up in the US before they show up in other locations. So it depends, but you can Google it and see if you can actually access that feature, because you may not know where to look for it before. So that's one thing. Or if you don't have that function, then you can obviously use your about section to showcase, to talk a little bit about what you've been up to during that break. But essentially what we want to have, so this is not the same situation as with a resume. If let's say you were out of work for personal family reasons, I wouldn't encourage you to like broadcast that to everyone on your LinkedIn profile generally. I mean, I'm just like generalizing, which is not 100% accurate. But in general, you could talk about your career break in the context of, have you done any professional development activities? Or what have you done to stay current and up to date in your profession, in your industry? Have you attended events? Have you done some networking? Have you attended conferences? Have you done some professional development? Have you done some additional education? So if you're talking about that, then a lot of that can be found in your education section as well. So your career break, depending on what your specific situation is, could be addressed differently on your LinkedIn profile. Okay. So actually, I was planning to analyze another profile for today, but again, we talked for almost an hour with just, well, I talked. Like I said, you have to stop me at some point because I can talk about LinkedIn and LinkedIn profile optimization forever. So I think we're going to wrap this up for tonight. I really hope that you guys took something away from today. And if you learned something new, please feel free to type in the comments the biggest takeaway that you have from today. So if there's just one thing that you remember out of everything that we covered, or the profile examples that we analyzed and reviewed today together, what would that one thing be? Like one learning outcome, as it's usually said. In the meantime, I do encourage you to connect with other participants. And if you have some feedback, please feel free to message me as well. If you want to have me review your profile next time, please look out for another post. I will do my best to go live more regularly on here and review more of your profiles or talk all things LinkedIn. So if you follow me on LinkedIn and if you comment or like any of my posts, you'll be on the lookout for the announcement for the next live. Also, I am planning to launch a group coaching program for those of you who are super motivated to unlock the full potential of your LinkedIn profiles and to learn and understand LinkedIn beyond even just writing a great profile. So if you're someone who likes to go deeper into things, who likes to understand how things work and how you can actually continuously leverage LinkedIn to its fullest potential, like that would be the perfect program in that case. Like that's essentially what my goal is for this group coaching program. So if you're interested, message me after this live. You can just message me directly or comment under the recent post and let me know that you're interested, and I'll be able to send you some more information. In that case, thank you guys so much for joining today. Okay, great comment from Amanda, by the way. So love the advice on linking your banner to your about to your experience. Yes, exactly. So all of that is part of your story on LinkedIn. And the question is, what do you want that story to be? And on this note, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day, night, depending where you are. And thank you so much for staying till the end and for watching. I hope to see you next week. See ya.